Hey guys, it's Tyler with TCG Rewind. Today I wanted to do a quick video talking about Fusion Gate heroes. Now, a couple weeks back, there was someone who actually placed top 4 in a September 2011 tournament playing a deck very similar to this one. I modified the build a little bit, just for my own personal preferences, but I actually looked at his build and I didn't honestly understand how it worked at first, which like I was pretty surprised by that. So it took me a little bit of time to figure out how this all functioned, and I honestly was pretty shocked at what I learned. So I kind of wanted to share this with you because this deck is actually kind of insane. It can do some pretty crazy pretty crazy combos that I had no idea the deck was capable of. So yeah, I kind of want to break that down. And also apologies if I sound a little sick. I think I'm getting a cold. So Carpath, your time to shine, buddy. But anyway, yeah, so I just wanted to do a quick deck profile. This deck is beautiful, so I wanted to show it off, but also, I'll keep it short this time. I don't want to waste too much of your time, but then afterwards, I'll kind of hop into the combos and explain how this deck functions because it is absolutely insane. So yeah, we'll just hop right into this real quick. So for the heroes, we run 2 copies of Elemental Hero Alias, 1 copy of Stratos, a copy of Voltic, and then we have our little package of I want to say bricks, right? You have Bubble Man, Burstinatrix, Avian, and Clayman. These guys are absolutely necessary to use for these guys are absolutely necessary to use for the combo. You need these guys in here to make Electrum. So I'll get into that a bit later as to why that's super necessary important, but yeah, just know that you do have to absolutely run these guys, and then you do kind of have to almost play conservative with them. You don't really want to banish them for your copies of the Shining, mostly because I don't think the add back effect of Shining is super reliable, because a lot of times people will try to find a way to play around that to deal with it. So yeah, you kind of have to be conscious of how you use these guys because you really need to be able to make Electrum, and again, we'll get into that in a bit later. As for the rest of the monsters, we run 3 copies of Thunder Dragon, and then the person who topped with this was running 3 Maxi, but I personally felt like this deck is really weak to getting Trishula'd or getting hit with a well-timed Caius or something that could kind of just blow you out. So I am definitely a Veiler over Maxi kind of guy, so I decided to do 2 Effect Veiler and then a single copy of Maxi. I think this is best ratio. I honestly debated on just running 3 Veiler because, again, I genuinely think I would be afraid of Trishula running this deck because, you just have a lot of fragility on your board. You don't really have any, negation or anything, right? So, but yeah, that is it for the monsters. Super small monster count. It's pretty basic, but I really like the ratios. I really like the ratios. It keeps it simple. So we'll move on to the spells. So for the spells, we have our one-ofs. We have Dark Hole, of course. We have Heavy Storm. We're not opting to run Monster Reborn because for the most part, you're not really digging into your graveyard. You're banishing a lot of your stuff, so you don't really need it. And you can't bring back the most of the hero fusions anyway from grave. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. And then we run a single copy of Book of Moon. This is to out Thunder King, in my opinion. You just want to be able to slam this on a Thunder King in the event that you need to dig through your deck, because this deck actually runs a crazy amount of searcher spells. Then we're also running a copy of Future Fusion, and so the only reason why I could see running Future Fusion as being important or a good idea is because you want to use this to dump some of your dead elemental heroes or your tiny ones. So usually what I'll do is I'll dump Bubble Man and then Avian to go for Ab Zero, because these guys are kind of like bricks to draw. You really don't want to see them in your hand. You want to keep them in deck. So yeah, that's why we opt for Future Fusion. Just getting the free Absolute Zero and sending a couple bricks to grave, I think it's worthwhile. Next we run 2 copies of E Emergency Call. You could technically do Rhoda E Emergency Call, but all your monsters are heroes, so they just decided to double down. I went with it as well. And then this is the most important card of the deck. We are running triple Fusion Gate. So this basically just says you can banish cards to fuse from your hand or field. It's not once per turn, which is kind of where it gets abusable and kind of crazy. Then we of course run the 3 Terraforming to search it out, and then our last searcher card is going to be triple Duality. So again, we have almost 9 searcher cards if you include Stratos, which is why Thunder King is a bit scary, but it's really important. You actually dig through your deck very, very quick, especially if you count things like Thunder Dragon. So I guess Thunder Dragon's another so you have 12 searcher cards, but yeah. You dig through your deck a lot with this to just try to get to your combo, because your combo is absolutely absurd. But yeah, that is it for the spells. Again, nothing too fancy or crazy. And then traps is where it gets interesting. This is the card. This here is the card that makes this deck way more broken. I did not include this on my build in the website because, quite frankly, I didn't understand it. But now I have an understanding of it, and this card is absolutely absurd. So, Chain Material. This card was ran by Robert Boyajian to enable the Electrum OTK in like 2012. But how you did that is you would kind of loop making Electrums to make overlay into Gustav Max, burn, and then, you know, banish that Gustav Max and just kind of repeat that process until you won the game. That's not applicable here because Gustav Max is not legal in September 2011. So what you're actually using this to do is make a really big board. One thing I never really understood about the card is that when you fuse, I thought once you activated this, any monster you fuse that turn will get destroyed, but it's only the monsters that you fuse using this effect. So you can fuse with the fusions that you make to basically naturally fusion summon, and then those monsters will stay, which basically means you can kind of loop a crazy board, which is what I'll show you in our combo tutorial. But yeah, so this is like the most cracked card in the deck. This card is absolutely insane. I've always thought this card was really good, but I had no idea that you could basically choose to not use its effect after it's been resolved and, you know, not lose every fusion on your field. So that's really crazy. Then we have a couple spot removal cards. We got 2 Bottomless, 2 Deprison. These are mostly probably just for Thunder King, right? You just want to be able to deal with Thunder King and out it. And then we have like the Solemn package. So double Warning, a Judgment, and then lastly we have a copy of Trap Death Shoot. Doesn't really need much explanation. These cards are kind of insane. So yeah, that is it for the trap lineup. And then we will hop into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we run 2 copies of Utopia and then 3 copies of Elemental Hero Electrum. You absolutely need 3 of this card to make this deck function, so keep that in mind. This is one of the most important cards of the deck. And then we also run 3 copies of Elemental Hero The Shining. This is another, this is the most generically abusable card you can summon in this deck because you run cards like Thunder Dragon and stuff to banish with a hero. So you definitely want to max out on this. This card is critically important. And then we also run 3 copies of Ab-Zero. So you actually don't run a water outside of Electrum. Basically, Electrum can be any different type of monster, which is why he's kind of crazy, right? He is treated as a wind, fire, earth, and water, as well as a light. So yeah, he can kind of just make any of these hero guys, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so you make Absolute Zero and you want to run multiples because there's a lot of times where you just banish an Absolute Zero and something in your combo just to blow up your opponent's board. So you can just fuse with it, blow up your opponent's board, and then kind of just you're going to put it back anyway, so who cares? But yeah, really, really crazy. And then we run 1 copy of Vision Hero Adoration. So this is a card you kind of have to be careful with. This card, you can't just naturally you can't fuse with this card with any of these other guys outside of Ab-Zero. So you can only use this with an Ab-Zero to make another Ab-Zero because of the fact that it's a Vision Hero, not an Elemental Hero. The one nice thing about this is, let's say you've burned through all of your Shinings. When you do your Chain Material combo, you can fuse into this by banishing your Shinings. So then you can shuffle these Shinings back with Electrum to get your Shinings back online for your board. So that's another nice little part of the effect. So that's why this card's important. I don't think you really make this inherently unless you're out of the Shinings, but this will help you basically get your Shinings back, which is really nice. 1 copy of Nova Master, just to have it as the toolbox option of, hey, I want to swing over and pop and draw a card. It's obviously pretty good for that exact reason. Also in a world where maybe you have a Burstinatrix in hand and this you don't have another play, this can come up and be really strong. I opted to run 1 copy of Elemental Hero Gaia. The build that topped was running 2 copies of Chimera Tech. I didn't really feel like that was necessary, and I kind of like Gaia, especially running cards like Max C, just to maybe potentially out a Spirit Reaper or something if you're not doing the Chain Material combo. It's a bit niche. I don't know how relevant it is, but this is just what I opted to do, mostly because I was just too lazy to pull out my 2nd copy of Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. So yeah, that is it for the extra deck. Pretty simple stuff, mostly just hero monsters, right? So nothing crazy. You're really not making any other plays outside of fusion summons with this deck. So lastly, we'll go into my side deck. The side deck is something I just kind of threw together. I don't know if this is necessarily optimized. This is not the same side deck from the guy that topped, but I just have my own preferences and things I wanted to try. So this is kind of what I threw together. I'm a hand trap guy, so we're running 2 copies of DD Crow, 2 copies of Max C, and then a single Valor. This is just to kind of like add more defense for what you need defense for. And I also play Columbus, and the tournament that I like saw was like a Toronto, so there's no Dark World, but DD Crow is your answer to Dark World, so that's why I have it in there. Run 2 copies of Cyber Dragon for like Curries or whatever. 3 copies of MST in the event that you run it against a deck with like pesky floodgates, or a lot of times people will side in like deep prisons against you. This is a nice way to deal with that. And then this is another card I wanted to try. I don't know how good it is, but I did think it was like worth a shot. It does technically turn off your Electrum combo, which isn't super great, but I felt like this deck can effectively play through this card, and versus a deck that really can't play through this card, it's really powerful. So I opted for 2 copies of Skill Drain. And then like I said, like most of your cards, like the Shining and Ab-Zero, function under them, and with Gate Heroes, if this is on the field, like you probably have the biggest monster, or you can at least probably make the biggest monster, which is where like this card's really, really strong in my opinion if you're against a deck that gets hard shut down by Skill Drain. And then lastly, this is a bit spicy. I don't know if this is worth it. Maybe Trap Stun's better, but I'm a Decree guy too. Like if you're against a deck that's super trap heavy, I felt like you could just side out a lot of your traps, including like the chain material, and just go for triple Decree, triple MST, and then just like play Fusion Gate Heroes like naturally, just make big Shinings, and you'll have the biggest monster on board, and you turn off like 50% of their deck. I feel like it could be worth it. Again, not sure if this is optimized, but this is what I wanted to try, so that's what we're going for. But all right, that's about it for this little deck profile. We'll hop right in and get into those combos. All right, guys, so this is the little combo tutorial. These are the only things you need for this combo to function. You need these 4 cards either in deck, hand, graveyard, just basically as long as they are not banished, the combo's live, right? So these guys need to basically be like summonable in some way, which technically this is why I said like in general you don't really want to banish these for your like just like normal fusion summons like without using chain material, just because like you don't really have a reliable way to get them back. Like yes, you have Elemental Hero the Shining, like the pop effect, but again, people typically try to play around that, which is why I wouldn't, like, unless I absolutely had to, I would never actually banish these guys. But yeah, so the only reason why you banish them is you banish them for Electrum. You need to keep your Electrum live for this combo to start. So we'll just go over what chain material does if you don't know. That way we can kind of like get into how this combo works. But basically, chain material says anytime you fusion summon a monster this turn, you can remove from play from your side of the field, deck, hand, or graveyard fusion materials that are listed on the fusion monster card and use them as fusion material monsters. You cannot attack during the turn this card is activated, so this is not an OTK card, right? This is literally just I'm going to build a big board card, basically. And then if you use this effect for a fusion summon, the summoned fusion monsters are destroyed during the end phase. So that's where like I said, that's where I got confused. I thought any fusion you made this turn would get destroyed, but that is actually not the case. It is literally just the fusions you make using this effect. So anything you summon naturally through the effect of Fusion Gate, like by using cards from your field or hand, this does not apply to, which is where this is really, really nuts. So yeah, basically the combo, all it is chain material plus Fusion Gate. So like you can even go as far as like you like Heavy Storm, chain the chain material, then activate Fusion Gate. As long as this card has resolved and you have Fusion Gate, you're off to the races. So Fusion Gate is not once per turn. So the effect, you start with the effect, basically you banish these 4 cards, right, for the fusion, and you summon an Electrum. Electrum's effect is when it is fusion summoned, you get to shuffle all of your banished cards back into the deck. So you just shuffle these guys right back. And again, he is also treated as a wind, water, fire, and earth monster, which is where this all kind of comes into play. So hopefully you kind of see where I'm going with this, but basically the next part of the combo is you banish these 4 again, summon Electrum again, and then you shuffle these guys right back. So now you have 2 copies of Electrum. And the nice thing about it is like it's literally a light monster. It's any attribute. So you can just fuse these 2, and this is like a natural fusion summon, right? You're using 2 monsters on your field. So you can just fuse these 2 and make yourself like an absolute 0, for example, right? So a hero plus a water monster, because he's treated as anything really. So make your absolute 0, and this monster will stay on the field. It won't get destroyed during the end phase. So then this is where the 3rd Electrum comes in, and this is where the 3rd Electrum is really important. You banish these 4 cards yet again from your deck, special summon Electrum, Electrum's effect, you shuffle these guys back into the deck, and it also shuffles these guys back into the extra deck. So now you can probably see where this loop is, because then you just do the same thing again. You banish these 4, special summon Electrum, Electrum shuffles these 4 back. Now you can banish these 2, make yourself any hero monster. So we'll go with Elemental Hero the Shining, and then we'll do it again. So banish these 4, special summon Electrum, Electrum shuffles everything back, banish the 4 again, for Electrum, Electrum shuffles back, banish these 2. This is where you can make a Nova Master. So I like to make one of each of these guys just to have the different options on the board, you know. The goal is really just to make a really big board that your opponent either dark holes or loses to. So, because again, you can't attack this turn. So this is where, like, that's like the one drawback to this, but it's still like, this is kind of nutty, right? So yeah, then you do it again, you make Electrum, banish, and then shuffle all these guys back. The Electrums go back, and then on this last one, I like to make an absolute 0. So I double down on absolute 0. Reason why I leave the Shining is because I want the option to go into the Shining later, in the event that I do get Darkhold. So this is where, like, the last part of the effect is kind of interesting. Technically, you can make the 3rd Electrum and then fuse with this Electrum and like a card in your hand. I'm going off the assumption we have nothing in our hand. So what I actually usually do to end this combo, if I have nothing to fuse with in my hand, is I actually banish a Stratos and then like an Alias, right? So you banish these 2 and then special summon back, special summon a Shining. So then you still have 1 Shining in your extra, and then you can end and let the chain material effect destroy the Shining, which means you're going to basically add these 2 cards back to your hand. So that's going to enable more plays for the next turn, which I think is really good, because then your opponent either dark holes this board or probably loses to it. And then if they do dark hole the board, you still have the summon of a Stratos to search a hero and make another Shining or something like that, which is still a pretty powerful follow-up play, all things considered. So yeah, that's kind of what the initial part of this combo is, which I think, again, is really, really sick. Like, there's really not a lot of things in 2011 that can make a board like this. The only thing to note is if your opponent max Cs, you can technically loop this, right? So you can loop this virtually infinitely, and that means you can force your opponent to deck out. However, if your opponent is also running Valor, and you summon this and they Valor, the combo's dead. Like, you have to have like a Book of Moon or something to chain, which is also why I don't know if I recommend taking the Max C challenge in the event that you know your opponent is playing Valor, because you can just hard lose to that Valor. I mean, technically you can make them draw a majority of their deck, and that actually could, like, at a certain point, you don't want to draw cards, if that makes sense. You want some stuff left in deck, especially in this format where you're running like Tengus and Tour Guides. But yeah, if your opponent Valors at any point, this combo is dead. And then you kind of have to get a bit more creative with how you're going to do things, because you basically would need to resolve like 2 Shinings effects to bring back these like banished heroes. So if they stay banished, like, it's kind of doomed. But yeah, that's the one thing to know, is there is counterplay to this. But again, it is very strong. And in the event that you do, like, the only really thing your opponent can do is Dark Hole or something like that. Which again is technically fine, because you should be able to build a follow-up for the next turn. But yeah, that's it for like the first part of this combo. We'll hop in there. There's like one other cool thing I kind of wanted to show you. I don't even know how relevant it is, but I do think it's cool, so we'll get into it. All right, so this is just like the weird synergy that involves Thunder Dragon, which I think is kind of neat. Right, so let's say you've resolved Thunder Dragon, you have 2 in hand, and then you also have, like, you know, an alien, you know, like, I'm just giving an example. I have Stratos and like a hero in hand. I don't even know if this hero in hand is relevant, so we can also, we'll say Stratos, right, or like a hero. It can be in hand or grave, or field or grave, whatever, doesn't matter. But basically, let's say you activate the chain material effect, right? You can banish like the Thunder Dragon and a hero from your deck to special summon a copy of the Shining, right? So this elemental hero, the Shining, was not summoned naturally, right? So it doesn't technically, it would technically be destroyed in the end phase. But then you could like banish with the hero that's in your, like, that's on your field or whatever, or even if it's in your hand with this Thunder Dragon, to naturally make another copy of the Shining, right? So now this one will stay on the field, so this is kind of part of the combo. Hey, I get the Shining back, right? That's kind of cool. And then you can banish the rest of these heroes to summon a copy of Electrum. So we'll put that next to the one that it would be destroyed during the end phase. the Electrum effect will trigger, and that's going to shuffle back everything banished, including your Thunder Dragon. So you can put these back, summon the Electrum, and then you can activate the Thunder Dragon's effect again and add the 2 Thunder Dragons back from your deck, which I think is like kind of cool. Again, I don't know how practical this really is, because without these Thunder Dragons, you still are going to make a crazy big board, but I do think it's like kind of sick that you can like loop these in a way, or you can like reuse the effect, I guess, to like maybe build advantage. Because technically, let's say like you have 2 engrave, like this still, the same thing applies, right? You could just banish 2 of them, and then add, like, just get a +1 off of it or whatever. Like, you can add cards. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it, but yeah, I do think that's like kind of a cool and useful application. After that, you can just banish this and, you know, go and continue making your board. So you know, just go crazy, basically. I don't know, you guys get the idea. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of neat. Like, there's ways to basically cycle your Thunder Dragons to like reuse the effect more than once a duel, which that's kind of neat, right? So yeah, that's about it, guys. That is going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know in the comments if maybe you saw something I didn't, because again, I was just kind of learning about this deck. That's like the combo I kind of put together after like really thinking about like how this functioned. Shout out to Jaina in the Tengu Plant Discord for kind of pointing out that the chain material thing, that the ones that don't get summoned off the effect stay on the field, because that honestly like shattered the glass for me, where I was like, oh my god, so this is what you can do, and that's insane. But yeah, just let me know. Maybe there's more combos you guys can come up with, maybe like more things, like things you can basically use to take this chain material a bit further, which is kind of cool. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think. But other than that, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Make sure you guys subscribe if you want to see more content like this. You know, I'm definitely happy to like do some more combo tutorials, show off, you know, so let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want to see. But yeah, that wraps it up for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you guys have a great time dueling today.